Ah, mm, oh my.
Hello, hello. Yeah, it works. It works. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's been quite a eventful and long day, so we're very grateful and happy that you're here to attend our session today. Um, and hopefully it'll be worthwhile, but I'm pretty sure. So let's get into it. My name is Anika Altaf. I'm the executive director of Include. Include is a knowledge platform based in the Netherlands. We're independent but funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs and working on evidence-based policymaking. If you'd like to know more, please come and see me after the session. So it's really a pleasure to welcome you all to this session titled Towards Sustainable Living Community, Bridging the Financial and Employment Gaps in Low Carbon Transition for Underserved Populations. So today we would like to highlight the importance of a low carbon transition, but focusing very much on the just element of it. This means that we will be discussing both the challenges that come with the transition, especially for people that are left behind, but also focusing on what the potential opportunities are that we can tap into and some of the best practices that we have seen. And to do that, I'm very happy that we will be joined by Victoria Manya, also representing Include and a doctoral research at Leiden University, Israel Prince Orekha, Executive Director of Connected Advocacy for Empowerment and Youth Development Initiative, Rauman Smita, Advocate of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh and founder of a Global Law Thinkers Society and EcoCash Global Trade Hub, and Samia Khan, academic at Daffodil University, International University. And finally, we are joined by Morgana Sythove, General Secretary of URI Netherlands. So we're going to have ample room for discussion and questions, excuse me, after the speakers have presented. So I would like to ask you to hold on to your comments and thoughts and questions for when we open the floor for everyone. So without further ado, let's get into it. And I would like to invite Victoria Manya to come and give us a bit of an overview on the important elements of the low carbon transition, the just element, and some of the challenges and opportunities.
Thank you, Anika. I have to adjust the mic because then Anika brought it down, so I'll bring it up. Can I please get the slides?
Bear with us, a bit of a technical glitch, it seems.
Yeah, technology doesn't seem to be on the side of the low
There
carbon
we go.
transition. Okay, thank you. So yes, my name is Victoria Manya, and I work with Include as a knowledge manager, but I also am a doctoral researcher at the Leiden University in the Netherlands. And we've done quite some research in Nigeria, Uganda, South Africa, Ghana. And today I'm just going to give you the state of play, a very short overview of what we found so far, just to set the tune for the conversation we'll be having moving forward. The next slide, please. Yes. So despite being home to 17% of the world's population, Africa contributes only 4% to the global greenhouse emission. Africa also has the world's lowest per capita energy consumption compared to other regions, and about 600 million people in Africa lack access to electricity, hence the numbers that we've just mentioned. So why then should Africa bother about the low carbon transition? Does it really make any sense to, reduce emission when you don't have any? That's the question we want to answer today. The next slide, please. Yes. Well, the short answer is because of young people like Ama, a young Nigerian that I met a couple of weeks ago. She said to me, I don't want to be at the mercy of the sun like my grandmother. I want to harness the power of the sun. And her backstory was basically that she moved from the hinterlands, places that have been affected by drought, to the city to see how she could, go to school and start something brilliant. And so she started a solar business. And she said to me that her grandmother had spent her life tilling the fields, enduring droughts, storms, which each harvest bringing more uncertainty. And I underlined the uncertainty. Despite her dedication, her hard work, sometimes in some harvests or farming seasons, she had nothing to show for it. So Ama's vision is different from that of her grandmother. She wants to transform her community. She wants to contribute to the Nigerian energy landscape by turning the sun's power into opportunities. That should sound simple, but it's not. And why? The reason we have categorized into two based on our research. The next slide, please. The first is our priorities as stakeholders are divergent. They're different, and that's understandably so. The second is institutional monocropping. So we import treaties, we import strategies from other parts of the world into Africa and try to see how, some people even want to say they're imposed on Africa, right? But these are not working. The next slide, please. Now, when I say that divergent stakeholders' priority exists, I'm not trying to judge. I'm only trying to state the fact. And I said understandably so because stakeholders are prioritizing their own obligation, right? For instance, some are prioritizing community well-being, so those affected by extractions, oil extractions, drilling and all, those are prioritizing the welfare of the communities, right? Host communities. We also have decarbonization. Some stakeholders are prioritizing decarbonization, others security of existing jobs, a few livelihoods. However, the next slide. Just like the elephant that you see on the screen, you see the transition from the position that you stand. So from your positionality, you judge what the transition is. Some think it's a horse, some think it's the back of the elephant, some think it's the feet of the elephant, but it's understandably so because that is the lens through which stakeholders view it. And then what ensues quickly? Energy policies, for instance, have emphasized conservation and decarbonization much more than labor-based incentives for transition. If we take it a step back, we find that Nigeria, for instance, African countries in general, struggle with one thing, high unemployment rate, right? So remember what I said at the beginning, if Africa is contributing very little to the emissions, why are we bothered? Well, we're bothered because of people like Ama and people that are trying to get jobs and create opportunities from this transitioning. Decent jobs for youth and women stand at the periphery because our divergent priorities have overshadowed the majority of, or it has overshadowed the issue around job creation. I know Anika is looking at me, so I should be quick. But the conflicting priorities has done one thing. It has created a scenario where the concept of a just transition has become entangled with perpetuating fossil fuel structure, right? And then creating, among other consequences, a young generation of unintended victims. The next slide, please. If we could go quickly, thank you. Yes. So what we have now is that we lack distributive justice, we lack procedural justice, we lack recognition justice. But like I said, it is understandably so because everybody is prioritizing the lens from which their obligations stand. The next slide, please. Now, because of all of these issues, we also have institutional monocropping. Remember when I said we import policies, we import strategies from other countries? Well, there's the lack of contextual relevance. So I like to say you cannot domesticate outside of your context. You can adapt. But domesticating outside of your context is basically fixing square pegs in round holes. Also, the underutilization of local knowledge. Epistemologists of the South seem to be referred to or viewed as not important, not evidence enough, not empirical enough. So unfortunately, local knowledge is lost in the bid to, yes, thank you. Next is the dependence on fossil fuel revenue. And this is very important because the West got developed through fossil. But now they're saying there's a new pathway, renewable energy. Has it, or the low carbon transition, right? Has it been proven? Has any country used it to advance, to become a developed nation? The answer is simply no. So why is Africa expected to do that? But the point is, if the transition is viewed from the perspective of a labor-based incentive, then of course Africa can advance. If it's viewed as an opportunity, Africa can of course advance. We also have the inadequate support for green innovation and informal sectors, the failure to address financing needs. All of these are issues. I have a long list, prioritization of environmental goals and what the consequences have been, but I wouldn't go into all of that. I would say that for the recommendations, some of the young people that we met, the parliamentarians that we've spoken to have said, we need policies with the language of the youth. The youth are referred to as the most valuable demography within Africa. That's the major value that we have, right? But if the policies do not speak their language, then there'll be a mismatch, which is already happening. We also need labor-based incentives for the transition. The transition has to be about job creation and economic advancement. If it's about anything else, then Africa shouldn't be counted in. If it's just about obligations, then we shouldn't be talking about Africa's low carbon transition because there's nothing to transition from. Also, currency hedging mechanisms. We have issues with fluctuating currencies. We need to attack that with hedging mechanisms. We can talk about that later, but Anika is already looking at me, so I need to move. We have incentivizing low carbon entrepreneurship. There are brilliant entrepreneurs. I was in Nigeria 2 weeks ago, and I was blown away. I thought I was smart. But when some of these young people started talking, I was like, girl, no, these guys are smart and they're coming. But will they hit a brick wall? Will there be policies that speak their language and policies that prioritize labor, creation of jobs and opportunities for these young people? We also have import in substituting initiatives, yes, and economic free trade zones or economic green free trade zones. I can shed more light on it for the excellencies that are here. You want to learn more about what we think. Improved awareness to boost the total addressable market, very important. Addressing infrastructural deficit, very important. Skilling and upskilling, very important. Utilizing Africa's latitude advantage is also mighty important on this list. Thank you, and I'm sorry I had to rush through, but I hope it was worth your while.
Thank you very much, Victoria, and there will be more opportunity for you to share, I'm sure. I would like to go to our next speaker, which is Israel. So please, if you can come and share, and Israel is going to build upon what Victoria has been talking about, but then very much focusing on the community level.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here again. And today my slide is simple. Can you put up my slide, please? I'm just going to be, okay, well, it's not there yet. So today I'll be speaking on bridging the financial transition gap, an imperative issue for locally impacted communities. You cannot be talking about financial inclusion, cannot be talking about a COP that has to do with transition into low carbon emissions without ensuring that those who actually bear the brunt of the impact. Not seeing slides.
Please, can the slides be shown on the screen?
So those who actually bear the brunt of the impact of climate change are not captured in the policy intervention, discussion, design, and in the implementation model. And that is why to this very hour, we keep seeing solutions that are not co-designed, solutions that are not inclusive, and solutions that are not focused based on the context of the global scale. Bringing a technology that is not co-designed, I don't think it's also a thing that local community wants to see. Our local communities are often neglected in most of these stages, in most of these actions, in most of this planning. And these are people who actually bear this impact of climate change. So there are issues around addressing the financial gap is critical. Supporting communities in front lines around environmental transition, economic challenges that they are facing due to the impact of climate change is one thing that must be considered. We cannot work alone. Mitigating climate change has to do with a collaboration. So we are envisioning a world that has to do with inclusivity. Local knowledge often is neglected from these decision-making tables. And these are people who have installed indigenous knowledge that can actually transform communities. But these people are not given opportunity to be funded. These people are not even listened to. This indigenous knowledge have stayed over time, like in Africa before the advent of colonialism. And these are what has driven sustainable agriculture, prolonged life expectancy. But today, in my community in the Niger Delta, where people currently live 43 years as life expectancy due to the impact of climate change and environmental degradation. Time will fail me to talk about Mama Osaze, who became miscarried due to the what? Poor quality air over time that she took in, and lack of medical attention that actually will restore that health. And Mama Osaze currently lost the baby and the mother due to the impact of climate change, environmental degradation. So when we are talking about financial gap, those who actually need these resources ought to be the people we need to tailor actions around. We cannot begin to talk about mitigating climate change, not looking at the groundwork, the local community, the drivers of the frontline community, who actually are the champions of climate actions. These people have the resilient capacities that needs to be strengthened. This is where funding should go to. These people have the courage over time to live in an environment that is not habitable, but they still survive through thick and time. These are the people that funding should be made for. So I'm not standing here to encourage you people today. I'm coming here to say everyone that comes to COP today, let us begin to see how we begin to speak of inclusivity. Let the local community breathe, because they bear the brunt of climate change. So we cannot talk about the gaps. I'm taking a survey from my own local community. Livelihood loss due to environmental degradation that needs restoration and remediation is over 50%. For where I came from, we are traditionally farmers and fishermen. But due to the advent of extraction of crude oil and fossil fuel that has to also begin to look at how we begin to transit from it, we've lost that important part of our natural resources, our community, our unification, which is farming and fishing. So these distractions has also distorted our agricultural productivity and also traditional economic activities. So youths from these communities now, they are transiting, some are migrating because they've lost their indigenous knowledge, they've lost their mainstay of sustainability. We're talking about 40% health impact here. The increase of exposures of the pollutions and waterborne diseases has also led to so many malnutritions that local communities also face. This is where funding should be looking to. So we are saying, can we co-design? Can Global North and Global South bridge this gap and ensure that we co-create an initiative that will be globally binding to drive real actions? If we keep saying blah, blah, blah here, we are not including the most important part of the piece of the puzzle. We're actually not completing the puzzle because that piece must be completed. So we're looking at displacements, lack of resources. Victoria was talking about a young girl who had a vision of how the sun can bring productivity and investment to her. But that dream will always be a dead dream because that dream needs to be funded. Her capacity needs to be built. This is how we can bridge the collaboration. That is why we begin to look at a world without exclusion. How do we begin to strengthen bonds between the developed world and the underdeveloped world? If we don't continue to see these paths, social conflicts will continue to rise. Loss of cultural heritage will also continue to rise. So I'm here this evening to tell you that you are here at COP. What will you be pushing for? Whether as a policymaker or as a development activist or a researcher, if your policy is not actually looking at those key issues that affect those who bears the brunt, I think you are missing a big puzzle. When we are talking about financial inclusion, the data-driven insight around understanding the scope of the quality impacts from a study from the World Bank shows that environmental degradation has cost Africa over $33 billion annually, which is a significant impact on our livelihood. And a research study also shows by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development that Africa lost an estimation of over $60 billion to illicit financial flow and capital flights. So if we want to build a resilient community that will tackle climate change, we must begin to understand the impact of the vulnerability map, community critical target areas to interventions that will affect resource allocation and citizen-led actions. So we need to begin to look at the imperative over financing local actions. We need to see how we begin to strengthen technology bond, create access to technology that will enhance indigenous knowledge. Remember in my opening speech, I talked about the indigenous knowledge that have stayed over time, but they need to be enhanced to come to bear so that they can actually also feature in the global scale. So providing these tools, training to harness traditional knowledge that applies to climate smart practices and solutions is imperative at this time. So when we finance local action, we are empowering frontline communities. We are providing skills for youth unemployment. And we are also looking at providing community-based disaster preparedness for early warnings to tackle climate change. So if we cannot continue to look at financing local development, how do we transit? How do we push? So my obligation for those who are at COP today is that let's move from commitment to actions. Let's finance the male D. The male D are those at the bottom who do not have those who are speaking for them. This is where our resources, financial transition should be directed to. Capacity building, flexible funding, partnership approach that build co-creation initiative that leaves no one behind. So I want to thank you all today. I want you to take a commitment to actually begin to move to solving an holistic action toward mitigating climate change. Don't forget to identify the need and support the implementation. and co-create the solution. Together, we can actually make the difference if we work together. I want to use the opportunity to thank you once more, and I'm looking forward to a world without exclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Israel. And we're going to move to Samia. And Samia and Rauman first?
Yeah.
Okay, then Rauman first and then Samia, and they're both going to talk about the Asian context, primarily Bangladesh.
I don't know, fix the mic. It's working. Peace be upon you all. I'm Raman Smita from Bangladesh, the most vulnerable country and suffering for climate change. I have seen something devastating in my country, along with other nations. And I found three big problems. One is business, second is money, third is power. And I was thinking how I can solve these issues because we cannot ignore this. And then there is the solution I have come up with, EcoCash Global Trade Hub. We want to build a community. That community can think of a sustainable living and sustainable environment. Then we want to build business, green businesses that can help to build a green world. And then in case of power, I believe power is unity. So we are building unity all over the world. So this is EcoCash Global Trade Hub towards sustainable living community. Okay. So here already you have listened at what kind of problems we are seeing around the world. It's we can see it. We can now just see with our own eyes. We do not need our so many database and so much conversation. Everything is going on. But I see my people, little children, families, they're flooding away. So here, this extreme weather events in Bangladesh, the flood, droughts, a cyclone, everything is there only because of climate change. Then we have this rising sea levels. We have salt water, and our women are suffering, their health, the children, and everybody. We have food insecurity, and we also have this water insecurity, these public health issues. The biggest challenge, as I said. Next slide, please. I think okay, so the slide before. Oh no, before that. Yes, the biggest challenge I was talking about, the economic vulnerability. You see all the extreme weather, all the issues are happening. We see the migration. We see people are losing jobs. Young people, they don't have actually any job. And they're losing their cattle. They're losing their fisheries. We are like we are more into agriculture in Bangladesh. So we are losing it. So people, they don't have job. They don't have money in pocket. They don't have anything to eat. So in that case, we saw that by 2050, there will be 13 million of people will get internal migration. But it is not only, I mean, this number I have said, this database we have collected from other organization, but sadly in Bangladesh, we don't have much data on this. And that's why we are not able to claim our right for loss and damage or other funds we deserve. It's like we have the right, we see it, we face it, but we cannot claim it only because we don't have the evidences. So here comes the solution, the Eco Trade Hub. Next slide, please. Okay, so I would request everyone to imagine a nation where nature and economy grow hand in hand, where the youth lead on climate initiatives and where vulnerable communities gain access to funds and resources to adapt to climate impacts. This is the vision we bring today. Next slide, please. So here is the solution, EcoCash Global Trade Hub. This is the hub we created to build a community, sustainable living community. I was talking at the very beginning that we are building a community who will be socially aware. And then we are giving the platform for the eco-entrepreneurs, businesses, traders. We are going to mentor them, and we want to connect them to build this whole hub so that they can support, they can build their financial security. Next slide, please. You can see this goal and commitment we have, the vision I have already told you. We have committed through this EcoCash Hub to support 5,000 green businesses by 2025 and reducing an estimated 20,000 tons of carbon dioxide annually through sustainable trade practices. So the green business and the trade practices we want to bring on the table practically. Next slide, please. So the impact, you can see, through this EcoCash Trade Hub, we can promote green trade. Then we can support the local economy. It's not only about Bangladesh, but we can set an example for other nations. They can follow the same thing because we are practically implementing it in Bangladesh. So we can strengthen the climate resilience through this trade hub. Then we encourage knowledge exchange because we need more support. It's like only the exchange, money exchange services is not going to work in near future. So we need more exchange programs. So we support each other. So we are building this through this EcoCash Trade Hub. Then we will raise awareness among this community we are building. And in the end, we empower through financial liberty. Next slide, please. So the question is how this community we are building. You can see all the pictures I have shared here. We have built this climate think tank. We have 15 research experts in a small scale, but it's growing. It is just an example we are setting up. We have 50 dedicated volunteers who are working in this think tank. We have built students program. We are giving them training, advocating them for peace and also for environment and empowering them through this sustainable practices. This Do It Leaders Club, we have run it in schools, college, and universities. Next slide, please. Then there is Gen for Trees, Generation for Trees. We are planting trees. We are not only planting trees, but also creating the awareness among the community. So they all come up, and this is the easiest solution: plant trees and reduce carbon. Then we have this Guardian of the Earth Summit, a program to unite the whole program. So all the community, all the people come under this platform. We recognize them. We show them as an example so people can think that if they can do it, we can do it, then they also can do it. Next slide, please. We made 23 partnerships already, and more partnerships are in progress. So you can see Daffodil International University, we partnered for research, and other organization. We are already working with them on this global trade hub. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our organization, Global Law Thinker Society. I was talking about unity. Together, build better world. So we are based in Bangladesh, but registered in Malaysia, and we have chapters in more than 100 countries. So we are expanding our hands, and we are making a big family, a green family. Next slide, please. So the call, the action, all the people, you all have come here. Thank you so much for joining. And I request that all the people who are here already or who will watch us, I invite them to join hands with us to develop this EcoCash Global Trade Hub, build this community, this sustainable community, support this project, and support each other. Next slide, please. So here is our contact. And also I have provided the brochure, so you can check and scan and go to the website to read about everything in detail. Next, please. Thank you so much. But before I go, I want to share a bit story in 30 seconds. I am a mother, and I have a daughter of 12 years. So when I get my daughter, when I give birth to my daughter, she was so little in my hand, just from my tummy. I just look at her eyes and her big eyes. I could look into those big black eyes, and I saw that I brought this beautiful little girl from heaven to earth, and this earth is dying. And what we can do? We have to make it heaven. I promised my daughter that I will make it a heaven for my daughter and for the future generation and for us. I hope that you all will help us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this lovely final words. So, yeah, we're going to continue with you, one of the partners.
Get the slides up, please. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming and joining us. So I will elaborate a little bit about what Ms. Rahman just spoke about, so sustainable communities. I will be specifically speaking in terms of universities because we're in a very unique position as a university where we can not only show best practices, but we can also train the next generation to carry on the best practices when they go out into the world. So I'm from Daffodil International University. It's a private university in Bangladesh. We have around 22,000 students across 27 departments. And as I mentioned, universities have a very unique role in fostering sustainable communities, through education, through research, through engagement with our local or our national communities, our vulnerable communities, and by showing what best sustainable practices can look like. Before I proceed, these are very detailed, but in summary, a sustainable community focuses on reducing consumption, making sure that energy use is efficient, it's green, making sure that there's a reduction in the waste we produce. There is a focus on decreasing the use of fossil fuel and making sure that we are raising awareness, not just about what the best practices are, but also what the harms can be from continuing use of fossil fuel. So again, I will go into examples of what our university does. So you can see we have a pretty efficient waste management system. So the colored bins you see here, we use it to collect different types of waste. We have different collection days. And what this does is it makes it easy for us to recycle or reuse the waste that we get. So
as a result, we get to make sure that harmful materials do not end up in landfills, and that we are able to protect the local ecosystem as well as the public health of the communities that are around us, including non-human species. You can see here some examples of how we reuse our plastic bottles. It's not aesthetically pleasing, but the idea is not to make it look beautiful, but to make it safe and efficient. We've also recently started phasing out the use of plastic pens, and we started using paper-based pens. If you come, I can give you some. I have some with me. Also, we have very effective stormwater management system. So it rains pretty heavily in Bangladesh. We suffer from pretty severe floods. But fortunately, this is something we do not see on our campus, mainly because of two reasons. We've tried to decrease the use of concrete as much as possible. So the campus has a lot of trees, a lot of soil. So it's able to absorb the rainwater. Also, we store rainwater and reuse it throughout our campus. There's also a free water purification system on every single floor in every single building in our campus. What this does is it encourages our students to bring their own water bottles from home. Making it accessible helps us to encourage students to not go out and buy plastic bottles. On top of that, we have processes like sludge removal and desalination, so we can get fresh water from other alternative sources. This is an example. So on the left, you'll see what the area used to look like. We have a lake that runs in between our campus, but around 10 years ago, they started using this lake as a dumping ground for toxic materials. So over the last few years, the university authorities and our researchers have spent a lot of time cleaning the water. And not only is it very aesthetic, which who doesn't like nice things, but it also helps us to support the local biodiversity. I'm very happy to say that fishes have returned to this lake. And it also gives a space for our university community to come together and just hang out. We also have many other initiatives, so including we have a carbon reduction strategy that is in progress. We have automated energy monitoring systems, and we're also promoting zero emission vehicles. This is very detailed, so I won't be going over it right now, but I will just show you some of the best practices. We've tried to reduce the use of electricity by making sure as much sunlight as possible gets into our classrooms. So during the day, a majority of our classrooms don't actually require us to turn on the lights simply because we have an abundance of sunlight. We also have solar panels on our rooftops of, again, every single building. We have 9 right now. And then we also have solar cars. We have a lot of bicycles to encourage the use of zero emission vehicles. We also conduct research on a lot of these topics. I won't go into detail because that would take up a lot of time, but if any of you are interested in discussing, I will be available. As I mentioned, we have quite a pool of zero emission vehicles, so we have around 100 bicycles that students can rent, depending on the hour or daily, that they can use. We have an agricultural sciences department, which obviously teaches as well as conducts research on how we can make land restoration possible. What is the best way of using soil for farmers? And in addition to their research activities, they also do a lot of community service and community engagement projects. So again, simple things like planting trees and distributing them. And around August this year, Bangladesh went through a very devastating flood. So during that time, the department took the initiative to plant 3 million seeds and then distributed it to farmers in the most effective areas so that they can return or sustain their livelihood in the long run. Can you go to the next slide? This is not working. Right. We're also currently the only university in Bangladesh to have a department of entrepreneurship. So for the 4 years that our students are with us, they are focusing almost exclusively on how they can start their own businesses. And a big part of that is making sure that their businesses are sustainable, that it doesn't harm the environment, that it helps the local communities with whatever social or environmental problem it is facing. So in conjunction with that, we've partnered with Yunus Center and making sure that the businesses our students start actually go on to help the community. These are just examples of how our students help communities. We also do cleanups. Our departments recently cleaned up a river that was near and recovered a lot of the waste. Again, a lot of this, there's many other activities. When we think about sustainable communities, it might seem a little overwhelming, but small things can really help us to become more sustainable, not just at the individual level, but also at the organization, the national and international level. If you want to discuss any of the things in detail, I will be available, and I would love to talk a little bit more about how you could make your community more sustainable. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Samia. All right, we're going to move to our last speaker of today, Morgana. Morgana, you are going to also talk a bit more about the community level, but then from your own perspective, and I'm sure you can elaborate on that a bit more. But maybe let me start by an opening question. Is it, how do you see that community values and beliefs are influencing the success or maybe the lack of success of low carbon transition initiatives? And what do you think are unique contributions that that these beliefs can bring in?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Morgana, which is actually a pseudonym, but it expresses something of my own background, an Arthurian background. I was born in Wales, but my family from Lancashire. But many years ago, I decided to move to the Netherlands. Both the Netherlands and the United Kingdom belong to a newly proclaimed bioregion of the North Sea. We know that the North Sea is suffering many overfishing and many environmental problems. But coming to Azerbaijan, I would also like to acknowledge the spirits of the land in Azerbaijan, but also here in Baku, and acknowledging the ancestors who created many, many, many words of wisdom over many centuries. The first person I saw when I was in the old city of Baku was Nizami. Nizami, a 12th century mystic and poet. And it delights me to say thank you for coming to Baku. Thank you for the people of Azerbaijan for your history and your cultural wisdom, but also spiritual background, which today we're all very much influenced by. I'd just like to remind all of you that we are all indigenous to Earth. We cannot speak about people from this region or that region without realizing that the Earth is our home, and it behooves all of us to remember that we are indigenous to Earth. That's part of my introduction, but it's also part of what we're talking about now. So your question was, how do we see community values and beliefs influencing the success of low carbon entrepreneurial initiatives. Now, we just heard from Raoma talking about GLTS. One of the first things we did, I come from United Religions Initiative Global, but also from the Netherlands. And about 3 years ago, we decided to partner with GLTS, partly because we were very much, my passion is the environment. I like to call it the living environment from all its different aspects. By teaming up with GLTS in Bangladesh, and of course the Netherlands also has a great connection with water management. And I knew the Bangladesh would also profit from this partnership. Again, one of the answers to your question is that bridging community and entrepreneurship in low carbon initiatives is crucial for achieving sustainable development and addressing climate change. Effective collaboration between these two sectors can lead to scalable, innovative solutions that not only mitigate environmental impact, but also generate economic opportunities for local communities. Local communities, the greatest lesson I have learned from my interfaith work, not only from the spiritual background, but is how communities engage with the earth, engage with their environment. We can learn so much from listening to local communities, how they've solved irrigation problems in the past. We can, of course, bring new solutions. But as long as we just, I almost think it's like issuing grants. And I know that there have been many faith-based organizations who have given grants, but they never seem to be unconditional. And I've noticed, certainly after COVID, when I was working with many Indigenous people in the Amazon area, they said as well, it's good that people support us financially, but we need now dignity, not charity. And many of my Christian friends were very dismayed, but are they not grateful? I said, you know, it's not just being grateful. Maybe you can help a community to build a water pump. But if you do not respect the people, the way of life, then you are always going to get the feeling that they're getting a handout. And this is one of the things we really need to change. To go as Westerners, often we think, oh, we're going to help people. First of all, I was asked the question, did you ever ask the people how you can help them? You go in assuming they need help. But did you ever ask the women, how can we help you? And quite often, the solutions are derived from that interaction, that dialogue. But it needs a willingness for, especially people from the West, to be able to understand their language. One of the things that we've also found very, very helpful is to build up the trust in those communities by engaging and asking again, how can we help? So when we started working with Roma, it was immediately a partnership, fantastic, but how can we help? And one of the first things we did was to look at women's rights, health and hygiene. We realized as well, very quickly, that this is not just a problem of Bangladesh or India or Nepal, Southeast Asia, it's also a problem in Europe. And this is a big waking up call for everybody to realize that there are certain issues which are so fundamental that we need, first of all, to create these relationships. And one of the things that I really feel is extremely important is to build a relationship built on trust. These relationships take a long time, but again, it's part of the whole system of how can you make a project sustainable? And one of the things we found is if you do not follow it up and build up friendships and build up circles of what we call circles of trust and love, then many of these projects are doomed. They may last maybe 2 or 3 years, but because you've not built up those relationships, then basically all the work you've done goes to waste.
Thank you. And maybe just to add to that, because you've already talked about trust and building relationship, and if we focus on entrepreneurship, especially for young people, can you elaborate a bit on that? What trust and relationships and having sustainable entrepreneurship initiatives, what the role is there?
Well, as I was just saying, it's the interconnection, but I've also realized as well, whilst we want to actually support youth initiatives, it's also important to have the ongoing intergenerational conversation. Sometimes it's, for us as elders, good to listen to what younger people would like to see happening, but they can also benefit by the ongoing dialogue. So I think it's very, very important to stress as well that everything we do is intersectional, intergenerational, all the inters, and we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid. I should not be afraid as an elder that, oh, the young people are going to sort of not respect me, whilst we're not respecting the younger people. So I think it's a two-way, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we have had quite some input from the panel, and I'm sure there are questions or comments or contributions from the audience. So do we have a mic that can go around? Yeah, perfect. Are there any? Okay, there's.
Yes.
Before I could finish the sentence.
Thank you very much for the sharing. I am Sylvester Chiamtore from Burkina Faso. I am now leading a program in West Africa on climate change, funding by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Netherlands. The name of program is Benkadi, working together in the same direction. And the program is focused in Mali, Burkina, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, and Mali, Burkina, Benin, and Cote d'Ivoire in the 4 countries, with the collaboration of one organization of Netherlands named Word on That. The amount of the program is 21.6 million euro for 5 years, and the model of implementation is based on the dream of the local community, how to support the local community to strengthen the capacity and support them to increase their voice in the process of local policy. It is a soft program, and when I listen to you today, really appreciate the progress we made at the field level to increase the economic power of community, to make them more resilient. But we work on the other side, how to increase the capacity of the community, their voice, to increase vulnerable person voice in the space of decision making at the local level during the process of local community, how to support them to strengthen their capacity with evidence to carry themselves the advocacy and make their voice more strong during the process of local community. And during the 4-year work on that, we made a real progress. But at the end, we noticed that the community need also to have more capacity to be more resilient. And that is what on what you are working, and you are already succeed. And that is interesting for us, because if we have to go to the next step, we would like to share your experience, your good practices to this kind of local community who face every day to how to abandon bad practices like the wood cutting, the sand cellar in Cote d'Ivoire and Benin also, and the gold mining in Burkina Faso. Most of the time we make sanitation, but they would like to, they are waiting for us for an alternative. But how to support them to have alternative, to give them opportunity to change the thing, we need to have another field activity to do that. And that is what you are already best doing in your country. Congratulations for that. And we'll keep in touch with your teams. And in the next week, my head of BOR will come in Bangladesh. He would like to learn more how people of Bangladesh are more resilient to the climate. Maybe I will take your contact and make the link with my head of BOR, who will be in Netherlands in the next 2 weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good that connections are being made already.
Yeah. Yes, can I just explain how that works? Sorry.
Let me just take a few more questions, and then at the end I'll give some.
Okay, yes. I get really enthusiastic. Sorry.
Any comments, questions? Yes. And then I'll come to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you, for the presentations. I'm called Isaac Akabongo. I work with an NGO in Uganda called the Ecological Christian Organization. I have really loved the context under which we are having these discussions, the local perspectives and the local needs. It is true that over the years, we have been neglecting the knowledge which has been generated for centuries by the local indigenous groups. And this is really very critical that we put it on the agenda of these climate negotiations, and actually on the development agenda, not only the climate change negotiations as per se, but in whatever development processes we are having. I'm also happy that we are also seeing that the spiritual dimension, the spiritual and cultural values are also coming up. Many years ago, we were talking about climate change and health. Right now, health has been taken on. We celebrate that. But the spiritual dimension of climate change needs to be taken seriously, because this is a psychological challenge. There are people who knows that they are sinning against the environment. They are polluting. Not that they are stupid. They know what they are doing. Actually, they do it when they know of the impact. But the question is, why is it that it has taken so long for them to appreciate the change which is needed, the action which is needed? On the other side of the faith part, we say we shall pray for them. You pray for a person who doesn't know the challenge, but this time we are praying for people who are aware of the challenges. So what's the problem? We need to ask ourselves. I like your perspective. How do we interact with these people in a very simple way to understand what is forcing them to do whatever they are doing? So spirituality, issues of culture, issues of local indigenous knowledge is really very key. The psychosocial dimension of development, the social dimension of development need to be combined with our green thinking. And for me, I believe that once we work together, I think the sky will be the limit, because those challenges we are getting, there is that big social dimension, which is embedded within the spirituality, within the interfaith, within the indigenous perspectives. And I believe that this is the way to go if we are to achieve our sustainability. I thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a question or a comment here in the front. There are many questions. Everyone is going to get an opportunity. Don't worry. We'll get to you.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Edward Diviana. I'm from Nigeria. So I work with the committee, House of Representatives Committee on Renewable Energy. My first question is to Israel. So do you think that Nigerian government, both the federal, subnational, and the special purpose development agencies like NDDC are doing enough to protect the people? Listening to the analogy you gave concerning the woman who lost her pregnancy and all that, so do you think they're doing enough to protect the people from such consequences? Then again, I totally agree with Victoria that what we should be discussing in Nigeria and most of African countries is not about carbon emission, reducing carbon emission and all that, because now most countries in Africa, especially in Nigeria, we're still struggling to even be efficient in producing electricity power with fossil fuel. You know, our economy is strong, it's generators and all that. You know, so we are still struggling to be even to provide that energy, you know, in Africa, not to talk about reducing the carbon emission and all that. So I totally agree with her that we should be focusing more on maybe trying to make create more jobs, you know, job creation and that for youth, especially in the area of renewable energy. Thank you.
So Israel, can you answer first and then Victoria?
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable. I think, can we please give him a round of applause for being here? You are not in the room drinking tea and watching updates from online. We celebrate you, sir. A lot needs to be done, because if Nigeria, which have over 200 million population, gets it right, it naturally flows across the board of Africa, the entire length and breadth. If you also fail, they also copy the same contest across the length and breadth. For me, right now, we are not doing enough. We have the human capacity, but we lack data. We have fantastic policies. They are on the shelf. They need to be localized. We have fantastic policies, beautiful ones, but how beautiful are they if they are not touching the ground? Last month, we took time to train 4 local government chairmen, that is their council, on how they should start developing local climate action plan in line with the Nigerian net zero emission target of 2060. And they were shocked. Data, a big challenge. Even though you want to draw funding now, where are the data to back your claim? We don't have data, already data. So data is an issue. I think more investment should be done on that, and more needs to be done around localizing actions. Don't let it stop at Abuja. There is something happening in Jos. There's something happening in Edo. There's something happening in Bayelsa. I took time to cross-round the length and breadth of the states. The issues are same. We need to begin to build that bridge. And I hope this regional strategy will actually also tell work. But I'm tired of seeing policies on the shelf. I want to see them in my local communities. Therein, I begin to give applause to our team. But thank you once again for coming and to come share knowledge like this. More grace, sir. You are bridging the gap. Right on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Edwards. And of course, reframing the transition as an economic opportunity simply means that the transition demands much more than a shift in energy, but rethinking equity. We need to look towards policies that improve equity, equity of outcomes. So you can have, like Israel has described, beautiful policies, policies that align with global practices. But like I said, the global practices are global. You cannot domesticate outside of your context. If you do that, I re-emphasize, you are putting round pegs in square holes, which is what is happening. Our policies are not implementable because of the language that they have adopted. They are beautifully written, but are they written for the context within which we find ourselves as Nigerians, as Africans? I think the answer is no. Otherwise, we would have moved from talk to action. I have been hearing issues around policy incoherence, policy mismatch since I was a child, since I started studying government in the secondary school, right? History. It has been the case. Why? Till date in 2024, right? I'm becoming an old woman and I'm still talking about these policies. It's just because the language of the policies are not implementable. You need to adopt implementable language first. And if you look at it, when it comes to elections, we are very good with going to the grassroots, right? So if those strategies are working for the electoral purposes, they should also work for economic purposes. Government has the power to reach where many stakeholders cannot reach. However, other stakeholders have the heart to reach where the government cannot reach. And so, if the policies are mismatched, if they are divergent, if you are prioritizing one thing and I'm prioritizing another thing, two cannot work together unless they agree, right? So all stakeholders in Africa need to sit down and redesign one entrepreneurial goal or one goal. And that goal should begin with economic opportunities, chief of which is job creation. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. I know there's a question in the back.
Thank you. Yeah, it's more really an information or a suggestion coming to, taking from your last statement. Governments can reach places where we can't, but we can reach places where governments can't. I think one thing is obvious that human relation with the environment is not something that was invented in 20 or 30 years ago. For centuries and thousands of years, human beings have relationships with environment, with many things. I think what has changed over the last few decades is we've allowed reason and economics to take over what is in otherwise cultural, emotional, and other relationship. Our relationship with other human beings are not based on reason and economics, and that has taken over. We have suggested, and I'm just quoting where we are at the moment, I think the process of the state has reached, in a way, a limit to what we are going to be able to achieve. I'll tell you what Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, says: now is the time to mobilize. Now is the time to act. Now is the time to deliver. This is our moment of truth. Okay. And then IPCC chair. I mean, you can't get somebody as big as that. Is the world really listening to the science and data that we already have? How can they be better leveraged to not only inform multilateral environmental agreements, but action on the ground? And then the United Nations Environment Program Chair, we need global mobilization on a scale and pace never seen before, starting right now, before the next round of climate pledges. So what we've been suggesting, and we talked to some NGOs, is why don't we start a network of NGOs? There've been efforts in other places, but with a new title, climate motivation, climate mobilization, and create a whole new network where we take civil society starts taking ownership of the climate issue, not just leave it to the states and institutions. That's our suggestion.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we're running out of time. So I'm going to round up and I'm going to give the floor back to our speakers, and you're going to get one sentence to share what you would like the audience to take home today. One key message. Victoria, can I start with you?
Of course. I would say something quickly, something a popular saying by Professor Anil Gupta. He says, minds on the margin are not marginal minds. In Nigeria, I know growing up, we always say, I hear people say, I am poor, not stupid, right? So that's what it means. As much as we need to listen to the environment, we also need to listen to the people within the environment, the grassroots, the people that are still nurturing green landscapes, the people that are still embodying our culture, historical culture, beautiful historical culture and relationship with the environment. So as you leave here today, just remember that minds on the margin are not marginal minds. Thank you.
Thank you. That was one very long sentence, but I'll allow it. Rauman, you're next.
I will just ask you all a question. Can we be together? Can we unite? And can we be the guardian of the earth? Can we? Can we hear it from everybody? Like, yes, we are guardian of the earth. Can I hear it from you all? We are guardian of the earth? We are. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Israel.
Pause. Can somebody say pause? Let's protect, unite for a safer environment. Let's protect the P for protect, the A is for art, and the U is for unite, and the X is for safe, and the E is for environment. So together, let's pause and talk climate change. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what the lovely gentleman just mentioned very briefly, I think it's time.
Your mic.
It's
Maybe you can use more dollars.
there. Perfect. Was I audible before? Okay, I will just echo what the very lovely gentleman mentioned. I think it's time civil society comes together and starts acting on what is best for our communities instead of hoping some other force is going to come and do what needs to be done.
In the word community is unity. Think globally, but act locally. My local blessings to all of you.
Thank you very much. And for the sake of time, I'm going to round off. There will be a video shown, but I'll officially close this session now. I would like to thank you for your contributions and your thoughts. If you have any more questions or comments, please come and find us. Thank you very much. And once more, a round of applause for our speakers.
And you as well.
I honestly want to especially thank every face that I see in this room. We accosted you and forced you. Yeah, she's laughing, but yes, we forced you to come. My brothers from Burkina were like, yeah, we're going to come. Let's see. Isaac, that's your name, right? Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. The Nigerian delegates, I really appreciate that high-level guys came to our event. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Asante sana. Karibu.
That is based in Nepal. I'm really grateful for the opportunity that Global Law Thinker Society has given me.
Hello.
Unfortunately, I won't be here
from the Netherlands.
but I'm really grateful to tell you that
I will be speaking on the sustainability business, the green economy, and also how
yeah, we just happen to be
the SDG can go together. You know, having been a passionate environmental conservationist for the last few years, I'm looking forward to speak and also share my views about my experiences and what I have learned in this journey of being a pioneer in terms of the eco trade in Nepal. And also, in addition, I would like to welcome you all for the upcoming February Guardian of the Earth Summit in Kathmandu, Nepal, where we will be hosting along with GLTS Bangladesh. And I look forward to welcoming you all with warm hospitality and open arms here in Nepal. And I really thank you all, and I really wish you all the best for the upcoming COP29. Thank you very much.
Only work on climate or another thing?
No, on many things.
many things.
Yeah. But everything with the inclusive development lens, so very much focusing on.
And where are you from? Burkina Faso. Oh yeah, you together, right? Yes. Yeah.
So soon it will also be available.
I know, but I've never been to Burkina Faso, but I know it because of the djembe. The drums. Yes. Yeah. I know people who got very, very proficient. Yeah. So the people in the Netherlands, yeah. Yes. So in the Netherlands, there were a couple of people from Burkina Faso. Oh wow, yeah. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah. I've actually learned quite a lot how djembe players actually learn. And it's very osmotic, you know, they get the muscle memory. So it's not all written down, it's just, you know, you hear it and feel it. Yeah. Yes.
Globally and absolutely. You nailed it. Bro.
Did someone forget their phone? Excuse me, did someone forget their phone? Yeah, here, on the chair.
শামস এখানে এসো তো একটা ভালো ছবি আমার মোবাইল একটা ছবি
আমার মোবাইল I'm hearing Bangla again. It's nice.
শামস এখানে একটা ছবি তুলে দাও ভালো ওর হয়ে যাচ্ছে আমরা একসাথে তুলে ফেলবো আমি আজকে সেশনে সারপ্রাইজ আমি তো অনেক কিছু প্ল্যান করলাম কিন্তু ঠিকমতো বলতে পারি একটু আমি প্রেজেন্টেশন বানিয়েছিলাম 10 মিনিটে এটা বের হচ্ছে আমার